I just came back from my good friend Vince Delmonte's Mastermind. I've got some pretty cool stuff to share with you, kind of some of the lessons I learned, the big things that they talked about. The whole premise of the workshops at Mastermind, it was all about branding. And that's been a big thing that Bedros has been talking about. So he was the big speaker on Friday and was talking about building your personal brand. And if you have taken a look at Bedros' stuff recently, you've seen he has gone heavy into his personal brand, specifically with a new podcast on his YouTube channel. And it is literally exploding. They're getting 1,000 opt-ins a day off of his YouTube channel organically, with no paid ads or nothing, right? He's at this point where personally, I think he's about to reach what I would call exit velocity. So if you think of Joe Rogan or Dave Portnoy from Barstool, they've gotten to a point where they're big enough names, you can't bring them back down. Nothing's going to stop those guys. Bedros is getting there as well, where like everything he touches, they're just exploding with opportunities. Like he just bought Fuel Hunt, or he bought into that brand last year. It's already a multiple 7-figure brand. So the idea of building a personal brand and owning your name, something that's been talked about the last few years at a lot of the masterminds I went to, which should tell you like it's an important thing. And we're starting to see that in other areas. The other example I would use is Deion Sanders. You guys follow football at all? Deion was one of my favorite players growing up, and I love to see what he's doing at schools and like the way that like the changes he's making with coaching and bringing a whole different perspective to it. He just went to Colorado University and got hired as their head coach. Their largest attended game prior to him being there was 1,500 or 1,700 people, something like that. Their first spring game of this year sold out for 44,000 people. Think about that. That's one man. And that's because of a personal brand. Personal brand been developed over X amount of decades, but still it's a personal brand. So that's just like the big thing that hit home is the importance of the personal brand. So the first thing that Bedros spoke is he talked about one, creating your personal brand and putting your own name out there and telling your story and the importance of that. And I know a lot of you already do that with your business. So continuing to do that. Another one, like that Vince talked about, like 6 big mistakes that he sees. So the first one he said was lack of intention, like lack of intention with your content and specifically what you're putting out. I know we all get into these habits of like, I just need to post today, or I just need to put something out. And we just put something out. Just making sure that you're taking some time to think about like what you want to communicate and that you're actually putting stuff out with a good intention of what it's going to do. You know, in the marketing sense, it's like, hey, what's the message I want to communicate? What do I want people to understand about what we do? And then even in a personal sense, like what do I want people to understand about me? Like those are some things to think about. Lack of transformations. So 2 things with that. One, lack of transformations for clients. They don't see enough people posting about client transformations. And then going back to the personal brand, your own transformation. And this is something I am 100% guilty of, is I don't talk about it enough. Like I don't talk about my story enough. I don't talk about transformation that I've had multiple times, whether it's fitness, whether it's personal, business. Like there's so many different stories to pull out of me. And I know there's so many stories to pull out of you to make these transformation posts. This is interesting looking in the online coaching community, because that's what Vince does, is he's an online fitness business coach. So everyone there was pretty much online coaches. Hands down, everyone in the room, their most popular way of getting clients on social media was coming off their own personal transformation story posts. Again, something that would be just a different mindset shift for me in terms of frequency. They post it every week. Every single week, they post the same exact transformation type story, but maybe a little bit different perspective, but still the same concept. And that's always bringing them leads every single week. So I think that's a really big one, is that it's okay to like keep telling your story and just tell it and tell it and tell it. And that's something I've noticed, like just knowing Bedros for so long. I can tell you, he was an immigrant, came to the United States, escaped a communist country, had to siphon gasoline out of a parked car in order to get gas for their car. He's had to eat out of dumpsters. He was in a helicopter chase because they stole a car as a kid. I've heard his story so many times because he says it every single time he speaks, right? So thinking about your story and how you communicate that in everything you do. Another one, being a hater. This is bad for your brand, like hating on other people's stuff and being that person who's always complaining about this or that or whatever system that you're against. You just don't want to be that person. And then something I think is maybe different for all of us is just not showing up on YouTube first. The reason for this, if we think about content, is if you can make the big thing and then take the big thing and chop it into small things. So a lot of times these guys, like look at Bedros, some of the bigger people, they have a YouTube channel and then that YouTube channel gets cut up and put on all different platforms. The reason for YouTube is because YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world after Google. So the people use YouTube more than anything for searching, and it also lasts forever. When I got to the event, there was a gentleman I met who I did a podcast with last year and talked to him about joining the coaching program that I've been in black belt, and he ended up joining it. And it's interesting, the first thing he said when he saw me is he's like, hey dude, he's like, it's so great to meet you in person. He's like, I'll never forget your story, because in the black belt group, when I had hit one of my first milestones in business, and it was hard because it was coming off the year where we had miscarriages and our house flooded, like I wrote my whole story and I didn't think anything of it, just this is what happened and I went through some shit and we got to this goal. And the first thing he said to me is, I'll never forget your story. So just keep that in mind. Like, this is a dude I met once before, but he remembers my story, you know? So your story is really, 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 really that important. Another one in like Rachel Shear. So she's another online fitness coach. Really big for online nutrition. One thing that she said to me that I really stuck to is your alignments will bring you your next assignments. Like, the people you're aligned with are going to bring you the next type of thing that's going to happen in your life. Frank Denblanken, who was there, who spoke, one from him, same concept. Open up your phone right now and look at the last 10 people you text messaged. If there's not at least 3 people on that list that make more money than you, then you're not growing. That was his example there, which hurts to think about maybe, but it's true. Like, surrounding yourself with people who are showing you a different world or educating you in ways that you have yet to be educated in. This is from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, but in the marketing sense, she talked about, like, we all have our avatar. We say we have our avatar, ideal client, but also, what's your mindset avatar? Like, what's the mindset of the type of clients that you work with? Like, I think that's really important in thinking about identifying too. So that way, when you do get in conversations, like, you know, David was talking about sales meetings, and when someone's having an issue with price, he starts asking a lot of questions to get a feel for the type of person. Like, are they someone who's going to do well? Are they going to overcome these issues? Are they going to look for solutions? And you'll find who this person is mentally, and you'll know whether or not they're a good fit for you. For in our world, if someone comes in and they're let's just say a know-it-all, the client who knows everything, generally not the best fit for our community, because our people want to learn. Like, they're open to learning, they're open for feedback. So if someone who's a know-it-all, they tend to be more difficult for us to work with. So we try to look for that.